So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking the paintings that we created Monday. We're going to be finding the best portion of the paintings. We're going to be cutting them down, working with the negative space areas, and then mounting them on board depending on the sizes that you end up with. Make as many as you want based on the prints that you created, or rather paintings that you created. But be sure that you're choosy about the best part of the composition, because the whole thing may not be awesome, right? Like for me, there's a lot of craziness in here. This doesn't appeal to me, but there's a little bit of calm over here. So what I do is I just take a viewfinder and I start kind of working different compositional possibilities. Like I'm kind of enjoying this little figure coming in here. Let's see. Also really like all this striation, so you know, what would it be like if I tried something like, there we go. Yeah, I like that pretty well. Okay, so once I find at least one of these, if not more, that I like, I'm going to want to hold this down really well and trace around it. I'm using a Sharpie. You should ask other students' opinions about this as well, especially if you're struggling with like what you think is the best part of the composition. Because sometimes that information from another source can be really, really valuable. All right, so my goal here, and of course you're cutting on cutting mats to do this, is to cut this painting out. And I want to do so in order to get rid of this black line. So I'm going to place my ruler inside the black line. I want to see the whole thing, right? And then I'm going to hold it down really, really well. I just want to slice through my painting a couple times. It's important to go through it several times so we get a good crisp edge there. In this case, I'm not going to go all the way because I still have some pretty good stuff over here that I could do something else with. And make sure you've got a good sharp X-Acto knife. If you do not have a good sharp X-Acto knife, it's gonna rip your paper. You're gonna have a deckled edge. Sometimes that looks nice, but if you didn't intend for it to happen, it's gonna be a craftsmanship problem. Now you probably noticed that your paint is not quite as glossy, vibrant as it was when you first poured it on. Oh my, okay. It's a good illustration there of why you want to slice through it twice. This paper is pretty thick, but you also have like several layers of paint on here. Yeah, so it's gonna look a little bit more matte, and that's normal. What we're gonna do with these is we're gonna put a clear coat on them to get them to shine a little bit more. So if you used this template or viewfinder, you'll want to find a piece of masonite that's smaller than that. So you'll want to look through the stacks that I have in the classroom for you. This is a pretty good amount of space to have on the outside. That way the painting sort of floats a little bit, right? Consider the idea of working into this a little bit. So like I have this white space in here, and I really don't want that to be competing with this over here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and edit this piece a little bit. So you can draw on top of it. You can use Sharpie markers. You can add color, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and do this one. I want this to really push deep and dark. So I'm going to use this blue India ink with a brush. If you choose to do something like that, please make sure that you clean your brush really well, because this India ink will like destroy brushes if left in there. Let's see, I'll get a piece of paper. Yeah, that'll work. Let's work on top of. If you wanted to, you could use acrylic paint as well. Just try not to get it too thick, because we want it to dry fairly rapidly so we can mount the piece. So whatever kind of additions you want to make to this, however you want to treat your painting, whether it's more subject matter, color, you want to draw some stuff in there, completely up to you. The idea is to finish the work out so that you're happy with it. And because you'll have several of these, I would look at every single painting that you've made and decide if there's good passages in each one. You could end up with several good paintings out of this unit. Just going to go with another layer on that. I want that to be really dark. It's going to definitely change the quality of the painting by going in there and pushing this white back. And you'll notice that your painting may be a little bit buckled. Most of them have relaxed and kind of started to get more flat. But once we mount this to the masonite, it'll help flatten it out. So I'm kind of looking at this green. I'm not really enjoying that green very much. So I'm thinking about layering some blue over the top of that. Just because the green doesn't seem to really fit with everything else. Might leave a little bit of it in there. Or I might go over it with some yellow or something. I think I'm going to change what I do in this little guy here, this little spot. I'll clean this out with soap and water. Go for some magenta. Kind of want this little area to pop out just a little bit. Kind of become a secondary emphasis. This India ink is very powerful in terms of its color. I don't have to put a lot on here to get a good intense color. It's one of the reasons I like to use it. Again, I'm going to clean that out. Now I'm going to try layering a little bit of yellow over that green just to make it maybe fit with the yellows a little bit more. It'll kind of brighten that up a little bit. Trying to be careful not to get that red in there because it'll muddy everything up. If you have a lot of color and you really want the color to advance, sometimes blocking something out black can be helpful. I'm actually kind of liking that filtration of color. I think I'll go ahead and pull it in. Add a little bit more yellow to that. Get that quality of that green to be a little bit less gross. Try not to mix your inks, please, in the containers because it's going to mess it up for the next person, right? Trying to pop that bubble. No way. There we go. I'm liking that better. So I might want to wait for that to dry just a little bit before I go about gluing that down. The way we're going to do that we're going to use some Elmer's glue on this. We don't need a lot. We need enough to cover the surface, really. And I like to brush it on there because I want a fairly even coat. Like I don't want some areas thicker than other areas because it may cause it to buckle. And you'll see on the masonite, I'm using the smooth side, not the textured side. So on the textured side, we'll put some sort of a hanging device on it so that you can hang it on the wall. You could also just take like the big jug of like the gallon size glue and pour it into a cup or something and use it that way. Just make sure you wash out your brush, please. So this is going to be 100% glue, not water. So don't thin it out at all like we did for the collage. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, so my yellow is taking a little time. But I don't really have time. So in the situation where I'm needing to get this flattened, I suppose we'll pretend that that's dry, right? It's a good idea to have a clean piece of paper out. Flip your painting over, and you want to sort of center it up on there. And I just kind of like wiggle it back and forth to make sure that I have good adhesion there. And I want to center it up, right? So like I'm looking, do I have about the same amount of space here and here? Do I have about the same amount of space here and here? It's a good idea to put some sort of a weight on top of this. So if you're working with 3 or 4 other people, you might line them up, and then we could put like some magazines or books on top of it. And then this will be dry pretty fast. By the time we have class next, it's easily going to be dry and it's going to be mountable. So like in this case, I'll probably come back to it and work with that a little bit. So it's already flat, so that works out. Cool. At this point, it's ready for a clear coat. So you're just going to get to the point to where you have it mounted. You're good to go. We'll put a clear coat on it next week and a hanging device.